The cargo was heavy, lifted another metal crate onto his shoulder and carried it across the loading dock. His muscles burned, but he did not complain. He never complained. Complaining meant attention, and attention was dangerous for humans on station. The station floated in the cold darkness between stars. It was massive, a city made of metal and light, home to 100 different species. Traders came here to buy and sell, warriors came here to find work, and humans came here to survive. Set the crate down and wiped the sweat from his forehead. He was 28 years old, with short black hair and a face that showed nothing. His eyes were calm like still water. Other workers moved around him, most of them aliens with blue skin or 4 arms or scales that shined under the station lights. They did not look at him. To them, he was invisible. That was fine. Invisible was safe. 40 years ago, humans had discovered they were not alone in the universe. Ships from the Galactic Council had arrived on Earth. They had looked at the humans, studied them, and decided they were not impressive. Humans were soft. They had no claws, no natural armor, no poison. They lived short lives and fought with simple weapons. The Council allowed them to join the galactic community, but no one expected much from them. Now humans worked the jobs no one else wanted. They cleaned, they carried, they served. Some tried to prove themselves, but most just kept their heads down. Was one of the quiet ones. He finished his shift as the station lights dimmed to mark the evening cycle. His body ached as he walked through the crowded corridors. Aliens of all shapes pushed past him without a word. A group of soldiers stood near a food stall, their silver armor shining. They were tall, with blue skin and eyes like polished metal. They were warriors, proud and cold. They ruled 3 star systems and answered to no one. Looked away and kept walking. His quarters were small, barely enough room for a bed and a sink. He sat on the thin mattress and stared at the wall. In his pocket was a photograph, old and worn. He did not take it out. He did not need to. He remembered every face in that picture. His squad, his brothers, all dead now, buried on a planet far from here. He closed his eyes and pushed the memory away. A knock on his door made him stand. He opened it and found Minyu grinning at him. Minyu was younger, maybe 22, with messy hair and a smile that never seemed to fade. He worked as a mechanic in the lower levels of the station. "You look terrible," Minyu said. "Long day," replied. "Every day is long here. Come on, let us get some food. I found a place that serves real rice. Actual rice, not that fake stuff." Did not feel like eating, but Minyu was his only friend on the station. He grabbed his jacket and followed. The food stall was hidden in a back corridor, run by an old human woman who had lived on for 20 years. The rice was not perfect, but it was close enough. Ate slowly while Minyu talked about his day, about a broken engine he had fixed, about an officer who had yelled at him. "They think we are nothing," Minyu said, his smile fading for a moment. "Just tools, things to use." "Keep your head down," said quietly. "That is how we survive." "Is that really loving?" Did not answer. He had stopped asking that question a long time ago. As they walked back, they passed through a busy intersection. A crowd had gathered and saw why. A warship had docked at the station. Soldiers in perfect formation marched through the corridor, clearing a path, and at the center of them walked a woman. She was tall and elegant, with blue skin that seemed to glow. Her silver eyes moved across the crowd like a predator watching prey. She wore armor of black and gold, and her white hair was pulled back in a tight braid. Everything about her spoke of power. "That is Commander," someone whispered nearby. "She controls the Seventh Fleet. They say she is looking for a new champion." Watched her pass. For a single moment her eyes moved over him. There was nothing in her gaze, no recognition, no interest. He was just another face in the crowd, just another human. Then she was gone, and the crowd began to move again. "Scary," Menu muttered. "She looked like she could kill someone with a look." "Probably could," said. He turned away and started walking. He did not want to think about warriors or champions. That life was behind him. They reached Menu's quarters first. The younger man paused at his door, his face suddenly serious. "I need to tell you something. There is a gang on the lower levels, traitors. They have been grabbing humans, making them fight for entertainment." This expression did not change, but his hands tightened at his sides. "Stay away from the lower levels." "I have to work there. The engine rooms are." "Find another route. Avoid them." His voice was hard. "Promise me." Menu looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. "Okay, I promise." Watched him go inside, then walked back to his own quarters. He lay on his bed and stared at the ceiling. The station hummed around him, a constant sound that never stopped. Somewhere out there, Commander was meeting with important people, making decisions that would affect thousands. And somewhere in the lower levels, a gang was hunting humans for sport. He should not care. It was not his problem. He was done with fighting, done with war, done with blood. He closed his eyes and tried to sleep. 3 hours later, his door shook with frantic knocking. Was on his feet in seconds, his body moving before his mind caught up. He opened the door and found a young woman, her face pale with fear. He recognized her as one of the dock workers. "Please," she said, her voice shaking. "They took him, the gang, they took Menu." Felt something cold settle in his chest. It was a feeling he had not felt in years. It was not anger. Anger was hot and wild. This was different. This was still and quiet, like ice forming over deep water. "Where?" he asked. "The lower levels, the old fighting pit. Please, you have to help him." Grabbed his jacket. He did not bring a weapon. He did not need one. As he walked toward the lower levels, his hands were steady. His heart was calm. But inside, something very old and very dangerous was waking up. He had promised himself he would never fight again, but some promises were meant to be broken. Menu was his friend and did not abandon his friends. Not again, never again. The lower levels of station were dark and dirty. The lights flickered. The air smelled of oil and sweat. This was where the station hid its secrets. This was where criminals did business away from the eyes of security. Moved through the shadows like a ghost. He had learned to move quietly a long time ago, in a life he tried to forget. His body remembered what his mind wanted to bury. He found the old fighting pit by following the sound of cheering. The pit was a large room carved from the metal bones of the station. Hundreds of aliens crowded around a sunken arena. They screamed and shouted, waving credits in the air as they bet on blood. Traitors controlled the entrance, their thick bodies blocking the door. They were ugly creatures with skin and tusks that curved from their jaws. They loved violence. Did not try to enter through the door. He found an old maintenance shaft and crawled through the darkness until he reached a grate overlooking the arena. What he saw made his blood turn cold. Menu was in the pit. His face was bloody and swollen. He could barely stand. Across from him stood another human, an old man with broken teeth. They were being forced to fight each other while the crowd laughed. A massive sat on a raised platform above the arena. His name was, and he was the gang leader. Gold chains hung from his thick neck, and he smiled as he watched the humans hurt each other. "Fight," shouted, "fight or we kill you both." The old man threw a weak punch. Menu fell to his knees. The crowd roared with laughter. I had seen enough. He dropped from the grate and landed in the arena. The sound of his boots hitting the ground silenced the crowd. Everyone turned to look at the new arrival, a human, unarmed, alone. Menu looked up, his eyes widening. "No, run." Did not run. He walked forward slowly, his eyes fixed on. "Let them go," he said. His voice was calm, almost quiet, but it carried across the silent room. Laughed. It was a deep, ugly sound. "Another human wants to play. Good, we were running out of entertainment." He waved his massive hand. "Give him weapons, make it interesting." A guard threw a rusty knife at his feet. He did not pick it up. "I do not need it," said. The crowd murmured, some laughed, smile grew wider. "Brave little creature," or "stupid." He snapped his fingers. "Send in the fighters, 3 of them. Let us see how long this human lasts." 3 warriors jumped into the arena. They were big, each one twice size. They carried shock clubs that crackled with electricity. They spread out, surrounding him. In the shadows above the pit, someone else watched. Commander had come to the lower levels in disguise, following rumors of illegal fighting. She wore a simple cloak over her armor, her silver eyes hidden in the darkness. Beside her stood her elderly advisor. "We should leave," whispered. "This place is beneath you." "Wait," said softly. Her eyes were fixed on the human in the arena. There was something about the way he stood, something familiar. The first attacked. He swung his shock club in a wide arc aimed at its head. Moved. It was not a jump or a dodge. It was a shift, small and precise. The club passed through empty air. Before the could react, grabbed his wrist, twisted, and broke it with a sharp crack. The warrior screamed and dropped his weapon, kicked his knee, and the big alien fell. The crowd went silent. The second fighter charged with a roar, stepped to the side, caught the alien's arm, and used his own weight against him. The flew through the air and crashed into the arena wall. He did not get up. The third fighter was smarter. He circled carefully, looking for an opening. He feinted left, then struck right, caught the shock club with his bare hand. The electricity burned his skin, but his face showed nothing. He pulled the weapon away, stepped inside the alien's reach, and drove his elbow into his throat. The 3 fighters, 10 seconds, all of them down. Leaned forward, her heart was beating faster. She had watched warriors fight for her entire life. She had seen the best soldiers in the galaxy, but she had never seen anything like this. The human fought like water becoming a storm. There was no wasted movement, no hesitation. Every action had purpose. "What is he?" whispered. Did not answer. She could not look away. Was no longer smiling. He stood from his platform, his face twisted with anger. Kill the other one, he shouted, pointing at Minu. Kill him now. A guard raised his weapon and aimed at Minu. Something changed until now he had been controlled, precise, almost mechanical. But when he saw the weapon pointing at his friend, the ice in his chest cracked. What came out was not rage. It was something older, something that had been sleeping inside him since the day his squad died. He moved. The guard did not even see him coming, crossed the distance in 3 steps, grabbed the alien's head and slammed it into the arena wall. The weapon fell. Another guard rushed at him with a knife, caught the blade with his hand, blood running between his fingers, and drove his fist into the alien's face. 2 more jumped into the arena, took them apart. He broke bones and tore joints. He moved through them like a blade through paper. His face was empty, but his eyes were burning. Finally, only remained. The gang leader pulled out a plasma pistol and fired, dove to the side, rolled, and came up running. Fired again and again, but was too fast. He zigzagged across the arena, closing the distance. When he reached, he did not stop. He grabbed the alien's gun hand and crushed it. The pistol fell, swung his other fist, but ducked under it and drove his palm into the alien's chest. Stumbled back, gasping for air, hit him again and again and again. Each blow was precise, targeting weak points, breaking ribs, shattering defenses. The massive who had laughed at humans was now on his knees, blood pouring from his face. Grabbed him by his gold chains and pulled him close. If you touch another human, he said quietly, I will come back and I will not stop. He let go, collapsed to the ground, unconscious. The arena was silent, bodies lay everywhere. The crowd stared at the human standing in the middle of the destruction. He was covered in blood, some of it his own. His knuckles were torn. His hand was cut from catching the blade, but he was still standing. Walked to Minu and helped him up. The younger man looked at him with wide eyes. And what are you? A friend said simply, come on, let us go home. He helped Menu out of the arena. No one tried to stop them. No one moved. They just watched as the human carried his friend away. Above them stood frozen. Her silver eyes were wide, her breath caught in her throat. She had searched for months for a champion worthy of her bloodline. She had tested dozens of warriors from the strongest species in the galaxy. None of them had impressed her. And now, in the lowest, dirtiest corner of this station, she had found what she was looking for. A human, unarmed, unstoppable. She turned to, her voice was barely a whisper, but her advisor heard every word. I want that warrior. Stared at her, my lady, he is a human, they are not. I want him, repeated. Her eyes followed until he disappeared from sight. Find out who he is, find out everything about him. She pulled her cloak and walked away, but she could not stop thinking about what she had seen. The way he moved, the way he fought, the cold fire in his eyes. For the first time in years, Commander smiled. She had found her champion. 3 days passed after the fight. Went back to work on the cargo docks. He lifted crates, he loaded ships, he acted like nothing had happened, but something had changed. The other workers looked at him differently now. Word had spread through the station about what happened in the fighting pit, the human who defeated a dozen with his bare hands. Ignored the stares, he wrapped bandages around his injured hand and kept working. Menu was recovering in his quarters. His wounds would heal. The doctors said he was lucky to be alive. Visited him every evening, bringing food and sitting quietly while his friends slept. On the fourth day, everything changed. Was finishing his shift when the dock supervisor came running toward him. The man's face was pale with fear. "Soldiers," he gasped, "they are asking for you by name." His heart stayed calm, but his mind raced. He had expected trouble after the fight. Maybe arrest, maybe execution. They had connections. They probably wanted revenge. He walked out of the cargo bay and found 6 soldiers waiting for him. They wore silver armor and carried energy rifles. At their front stood a tall male with sharp features and cold eyes. His armor was decorated with symbols of rank. "You are," the officer asked. "I am." "You will come with us." It was not a question. Looked at the soldiers, measured his chances, and decided not to fight. Not yet. He nodded and walked forward. They led him through the station to the docking bay where the warship waited. It was massive, a vessel of black metal and sharp angles. The name was painted on its side in silver letters, the Silent Blade. Inside, the ship was beautiful and cold. Everything was made of dark stone and polished metal. Crew members moved through the corridors with perfect discipline. They all stared at as he passed. A human on a warship. It was unheard of. The soldiers brought him to a large room at the heart of the ship. It was some kind of throne room, with high ceilings and walls covered in weapons, trophies from 100 battles. At the far end, seated on a chair of black stone, was Commander. She looked different from the last time he had seen her. Then she had been distant, untouchable. Now she watched him with intense interest, her silver eyes following his every move. Beside her stood an elderly with a face, her advisor. And standing near the throne, his arm in a sling, was the tall officer who had brought him here. His name was, and the look in his eyes was pure hatred. "Leave us," said. The soldiers left, only and the advisor remained. Stood in the center of the room, surrounded by weapons and trophies. He did not bow, he did not speak, he just waited. Rose from her throne and walked toward him. She moved like a predator, graceful and dangerous. She circled him slowly, studying him from every angle. "You are smaller than I expected," she said. "When I watched you fight, you seemed bigger." "You were there," said. "It was not a question." "I was." She stopped in front of him. They were almost the same height. "I have been searching for a personal champion for 6 months. I have tested warriors from 12 species. None of them impressed me." She tilted her head. "And then I found you, a human, working on a cargo dock. I am not a warrior anymore." "Your hands say otherwise." She looked at his bandaged knuckles. "Those are the hands of a killer." Did not respond. Returned to her throne but did not sit. She stood beside it, one hand resting on the cold stone. "I want you to serve me," she said. "As my champion, you would fight for my honor, protect me in battle, and stand at my side. In return, I offer you wealth, status, and purpose." "No." The word hung in the air, stepped forward, his good hand reaching for his weapon. "You dare refuse." And his voice was soft but sharp like a blade. The officer froze, stepped back. She looked at again. Her expression had not changed, but something in her eyes shifted. Curiosity. Why? She asked. I am done with fighting. I only went to the pit to save my friend. That was one time. It will not happen again. And you fight like you were born for it, like it is part of your blood. Why would you waste such a gift? Was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke, his voice flat and empty. 5 years ago, I was a soldier. I served in the Human Defense Forces on a colony called New Haven. We were a small squad, 12 people. We protected the settlers from pirates and raiders. Listened without interrupting. One night we were ambushed. A rival faction wanted the colony's resources. They came with 3 times our numbers and better weapons. His hands tightened at his sides. We fought for 6 hours. I watched my squad die one by one. At the end, I was the only one left. The room was silent, even had stopped glaring. I killed 47 enemies that night, continued. When reinforcements finally arrived, they found me sitting in a pile of bodies. I could not remember the last hour of the fight. It was like I had become something else, something that only knew how to kill. He looked directly at. I swore I would never become that thing again. I left Earth. I came here. I hid. Because if I start fighting again, I do not know if I can stop. Was quiet for a long time. When she spoke, her voice was softer than before. You blame yourself for their deaths. I was the leader. I should have seen the ambush coming. And you think hiding from your nature will bring them peace. Did not answer. Walked toward him again. This time she stopped very close. He could see the tiny scars on her face, marks from old battles. I have seen many warriors, she said quietly. Most of them love violence. They fight because they enjoy causing pain. But you are different. You do not love it. You fear it. You fear what you become when you let go. She placed her hand on his shoulder. It was a strange gesture, almost gentle. That is exactly why I want you. A warrior who fears his own power will never use it carelessly. He will only fight when he must, and when he does, nothing will stop him. Looked at her hand, then at her face. I am not interested in power or status. Then what are you interested in? He thought about Minu bleeding in the arena. He thought about his squad dead on New Haven. He thought about all the people he could not save. Purpose, he admitted quietly, but I have not earned it. Before could respond, stepped forward again. This is foolish, he spat. He is a human, a weak, short-lived creature. Making him your champion would be an insult to your bloodline. Warned. No, my lady, I will not stand silent while you consider this insult. He glared at, if this human wants purpose, let him prove himself. Let him face me in a duel. If he wins, I will accept him. If he loses, you will forget this foolish idea. Turned to, and if you win. Looked at, the officer was taller, stronger, and had years of training. He was also arrogant, had beaten arrogant fighters before. If I win, said, you let me go, you leave me alone. I go back to my life and you forget I exist. Smiled. It was a small smile, just a slight curve of her lips, but it changed her entire face. Agreed, she said, tomorrow at sunset in my arena. Grinned, already imagining his victory. Turned and walked toward the door. He paused at the entrance and looked back at. What made you notice me? He asked. In the pit, you must have seen thousands of fighters. Thought for a moment, the others I have tested fought for glory, for money, for pride. But when you saw your friend in danger, your entire being changed. You did not fight for yourself, you fought for him. She sat on her throne. That is rare in any species. Nodded and left. Behind him moved to side. Do you really think a human can defeat? Watched the door where had disappeared. Her silver eyes were bright. I think has no idea what he has challenged, she said, and I cannot wait to watch him learn. The arena aboard the Silent Blade was a circle of polished stone, surrounded by rising seats. Crew members filled every row, their silver eyes fixed on the fighting floor below. They had heard rumors about the human. They wanted to see for themselves. Stood at one end of the arena. He wore simple clothes, a black shirt and dark pants. His feet were bare against the cold stone. He had not slept the night before. Instead, he had sat in his quarters on the station looking at the photograph of his squad, saying goodbye not to them, to the man he had tried to become. The quiet dock worker, the invisible human, that man was already dead, had killed him in the fighting pit when he broke his promise. Now he was something else, something he did not yet understand. Across the arena stepped forward. He wore ceremonial armor that gleamed like liquid silver. In his hands he held two energy blades. They hummed with power, their edges glowing white. He looked confident. Why would he not? He had trained since childhood. He had killed enemies twice his size, and his opponent was an unarmed human. A commander sat on a raised platform above the arena, stood beside her, worry written on his old face. The crew was buzzing with excitement. None of them believed the human had a chance. "Choose your weapons," announced. His voice echoed through the chamber. Behind him, a weapon rack displayed swords, axes, and blades of every kind. Looked at the weapons, then he shook his head. "I do not need them." The crowd murmured, some laughed, his confident smile flickered. "You refuse weapons against energy blades." He held up his swords. "One touch from these will cut through bone." "Then do not let them touch me." His eyes narrowed, arrogance. "I will enjoy teaching you respect." Lined toward, "My lady, this is not a fight, it is an execution." Did not respond, her eyes never left. A bell rang and the duel began. Attacked immediately. He was fast for his size, moving across the arena in 3 quick steps. His blades cut through the air in deadly arcs. Any normal opponent would have died in seconds. It was not normal. He moved backward just enough to let the blades pass. He read movements like text on a page, the way they shifted his weight before each attack, the slight pause between swings, the overconfidence that made him swing too wide. Pressed forward attack after attack. The crowd cheered with each swing. Surely the human would fall. Surely he could not dodge forever. But kept moving. He did not run. He flowed. He bent. He twisted. The blades passed within inches of his body but never touched him. It was almost like dancing. His attacks became wilder. He was getting frustrated. He was not used to enemies who would not stand still. "Fight me," he roared. "Stop running and fight." Stopped. Charged, both blades raised for a killing blow. Waited until the last possible moment. Then he stepped inside the attack. It happened so fast that most of the crowd could not follow. Grabbed his right wrist and twisted. The energy blade fell from the grip. Before could react, struck his elbow with an open palm. The joint bent the wrong way with a sickening crack. Screamed and stumbled back. His other blade swung wildly, but was already behind him. He kicked the back of Snee. The officer dropped to the ground, caught the falling energy blade out of the air and pressed it against throat. The arena was silent. The duel had lasted 12 seconds. Held the blade steady, one push and would die. The officer stared up at him with a mixture of pain and shock. Yield, said quietly. Hesitated, did not yield, died with honor. Yield, repeated, or die for pride, your choice. Looked at the blade, he looked at the human holding it. Then slowly he lowered his head. I yield. Stepped back and dropped the blade. He turned and walked toward the arena exit. The deal was done. He had won, now would let him go. He was 3 steps from the door when the ship shook. Alarms screamed through the corridors. Red lights flashed. Crew members scrambled to their feet. A voice echoed through the speakers. All hands to battle stations. We are under attack. Repeat, we are under attack. Grabbed a railing as the ship shook again. Through a nearby window, he saw fire in space. Ships were attacking the fleet, pirates. Explosions rocked the silent blade. Somewhere nearby, metal tore and atmosphere screamed into the void. The ship's shields were failing. Then he heard gunfire, close, too close. The ship had been boarded. Ran toward the sound. He did not think about it. His body moved on instinct. Around a corner, he found chaos. A group of pirates had cut through the hull and were pushing into the ship. Soldiers fought them, but they were outnumbered. And in the middle of the battle, separated from her guards, was. She fought with a single blade, her movements beautiful and deadly. Bodies lay at her feet, but there were too many enemies. 6 pirates surrounded her, cutting her off from help. Did not hesitate. He grabbed a fallen soldier's knife and charged into the fight. The first pirate died before he knew was there. The second turned and caught a blade in his throat, moved through them like a ghost, killing without stopping. A pirate swung an axe at his head, ducked, drove his knife into the attacker's stomach, and pulled it free as the body fell. Another pirate shot at him. He rolled behind a metal pillar, waited for the weapon to run dry, then threw his knife. It buried itself in the shooter's eye. He reached side as she cut down another enemy. For a moment their eyes met. She was bleeding from a cut on her arm. Her armor was dented, but she was still fighting. "Behind you," shouted. She spun and blocked a strike that would have killed her, grabbed a pipe from a broken wall and smashed it across the attacker's helmet. The pirate dropped. They fought back to back, with her blade with whatever he could find. More pirates came, more pirates fell. His hands were covered in blood, his shirt was torn, but he did not stop. When the last pirate died, the corridor fell silent except for the ship's groaning metal. Reinforcements finally arrived, securing the area. Soldiers stared at the bodies around, and the human had killed more than a dozen enemies. Looked at him, her breath was heavy, her silver eyes were bright. "You could have run," she said. "The fight was over. You won our agreement. You could have escaped during the attack." Looked at the blood on his hands. "Running is not what I do, not when people need help." People smiled despite her wounds. We are not the same species. Shrugged, does not matter. Was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached out and placed her hand on his shoulder, just as she had done before. The offer still stands, she said, but now you know what serving me means: danger, war, death following us wherever we go. Thought about his squad, about Minu, about the years he had spent hiding from himself. He thought about the fight, how his blood had sung in his veins, how for the first time in 5 years he had felt alive. He looked at, she was waiting, patient, understanding. I will stay, he said. The smile widened, not the small, careful smile from before. This one was real. Welcome to the Silent Blade, she said, champion. Behind them stood in the corridor, his broken arm in a temporary sling. He had watched everything. The human who had defeated him had just saved their commander's life. For the first time, his eyes held something other than hatred. Respect, grudging and small, but real. Did not notice he was already helping walk toward the medical bay. He had found his purpose, now he had to earn it. 6 months had passed since joined the Silent Blade, 6 months of training, fighting, and learning. He was no longer the invisible dock worker from station. He was something else now, something that made the galaxy pay attention. Stories spread across the star systems. They spoke of a human warrior who fought without weapons, a ghost who moved through battles like smoke, a champion who had never been defeated. Some called him the Unarmed, others called him the Human Blade. Did not care about names, he cared about doing his job. The commander's territories had grown in those 6 months. With at her side, no one dared challenge her directly. Pirates avoided her space. Rival warlords kept their distance. The human had become a warning: cross this line and something terrible will find you. But not everyone was afraid. The Grand Summit was held once every decade. The greatest warlords gathered to discuss treaties, territories, and alliances. It was a time of politics and ceremony. It was also a time when old rivalries could turn deadly. Brought her full escort to the summit. Her flagship led a fleet of 12 warships, commanded the guards, his arm fully healed. In the past months he had trained with daily. The hatred between them had slowly turned into respect, then something close to friendship, still believed were superior. But he had learned to accept that one human was the exception. Stood at side as they entered the summit hall. It was a massive structure built inside an asteroid, with ceilings that stretched into darkness and walls carved with the history of the people. Hundreds of warlords and their champions filled the hall. They turned to look as entered. Some nodded in respect, others whispered behind their hands. The human, someone muttered. She actually brought her pet. Ignored it, he had heard worse. The summit lasted 3 days. There were speeches and debates. Trade agreements were signed. Boundaries were drawn on star maps. Stood silently through all of it, watching the crowd for threats. On the final day, a warlord named approached table. He was old and with cybernetic eyes that glowed red in the dim light. He controlled the 9th Fleet, and his reputation for cruelty was known throughout the galaxy. Commander said, his voice was like grinding metal, you have grown bold in the past months, taking territories that border my space, making alliances without consulting the Council. This expression did not change. I have followed the laws of our people. If you have complaints, bring them to the council. The council is weak, stepped closer, his guards tensed. I am not here for the council. I am here to remind you of your place. And what place is that? Below me's red eyes moved to. I have heard about your pet human, your little champion. The stories say he is unbeatable. He laughed, a harsh and ugly sound. I say the stories are lies. I say you have grown weak, hiding behind a creature that should be carrying cargo, not standing in the halls of warriors. The room fell silent. Every warlord was watching now. I started to speak, but stepped forward. You doubt my abilities, he said calmly. That is your right. If you wish to test them, I am willing. His eyes widened slightly. Humans did not speak to warlords. They certainly did not challenge them. You dare address me, creature. I offer you a duel, continued. Not me against you, that would be too easy. Let me fight your three best champions all at once, unarmed as always. If I lose, Commander will withdraw from the border territories. If I win, you will acknowledge her right to those lands and apologize for your insults. The room buzzed with whispers, his face twisted. You arrogant little. Unless you are afraid, added quietly, unless your champions are not strong enough. His hands tightened into fists. He looked at the watching warlords. He could not refuse. Refusing would make him look weak. Very well, he growled. Tomorrow at dawn, in the summit arena, 3 of my champions against you. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. I will enjoy watching them tear you apart. Smiled, it was a small smile, cold and empty. Many have thought that they were all wrong. The arena filled before dawn. Every warlord and their guards came to watch. This was the event of the decade, a human challenging champions. It was either historic or stupid, perhaps both. Entered the arena alone. He wore his usual simple clothes. His feet were bare. His hands were empty. Across from him stood 3 champions. They were massive, each one a veteran of 100 battles. They carried energy axes, swords, and shields. They looked at like wolves looking at meat. Sat in the audience, her silver eyes fixed on her champion. Stood beside her, his hand on his weapon. He will win, said quietly. Well, you sound certain. I have trained with him for 6 months. I have seen what he can do, shook his head. Those 3 have no idea what is coming. The bell rang. The champions charged. They moved in formation, trying to surround. They were disciplined and skilled. Against any normal opponent, they would have won in seconds. Unmoved. He slipped through the smallest gap in their formation, appearing behind the first champion before the alien knew he was there. A single strike to the spine. The champion fell, paralyzed. The second champion spun, swinging his axe in a wide arc, ducked under it, caught the alien's arm, and used his momentum to throw him into the third champion. Both stumbled, followed, his movements a blur. He dislocated the third champion's shoulder, took his sword, and used it to block the second champion's desperate swing. Then he broke the sword over his knee and drove the broken edge into the alien's leg. The second champion fell, screaming. The third champion tried to run, caught him in 3 steps, a strike to the back of the knee, a palm to the face. The champion crashed to the ground and did not get up. 3 champions, 20 seconds, all defeated. stood in the center of the arena, breathing steadily. Not even tired, he looked at. Your champions are skilled, he said, but skill is not enough. You should choose better next time. The hall was completely silent, then slowly stood. Her voice carried through the chamber. This is what humans are. You dismiss them because they are small, because they are quiet, because they did not show you what they could do. She looked at the stunned warlords. Now you know, never corner a human, never threaten what they protect, and never assume that because they carry no weapons, they cannot destroy you. She walked to the arena floor and stood beside. The other warlords watched, many of them seeing both of them differently for the first time. Stared at his fallen champions. His red eyes burned with fury, but there was something else there now. Fear. I acknowledge Commander's claim to the border territories, he forced out, and I apologize for my words. The words were bitter in his mouth, but he said them. He had no choice. That evening, after the summit ended, stood alone on an observation deck. Stars filled the darkness beyond the windows. He heard footsteps behind him but did not turn. Stopped beside him, they stood in comfortable silence for a long moment. You have changed things, she said finally. After today, humans will be seen differently, not by everyone, but by enough. Did not respond immediately. He was thinking about his squad, about Minu, who was now living safely on Earth with credits sent each month, about the photograph in his pocket that he still carried everywhere. I did not do this for humans, he said. I did it for you. Looked at him, why? Because you saw me when no one else did, because you gave me purpose when I had none. He finally turned to face her, and because protecting you is the only thing that makes sense to me anymore. Was quiet, then she reached out and placed her hand on his shoulder. It was a gesture of deep respect, but from her it meant something more. Thank you, she said softly. It was the first time she had used his name. He nodded, something warm stirring in his chest. What happens now? He asked. Now we go home, smiled, real and bright, and we see what challenges the galaxy sends next. Looked back at the stars. Somewhere out there his squad was resting. He could not bring them back, but he could honor their memory by protecting, by fighting, by being the warrior he was always meant to be. I am ready, he said. Across the galaxy, humans were still overlooked, still underestimated. But for those who had seen fight, one truth was now clear. Never assume a human needs a weapon to destroy you, and never, ever make one angry enough to prove it.